Welcome back to our General Hospital discussion circle, dear friends. What we are witnessing today with Jason Morgan being held captive by the WSB is a direct echo of the golden era of soap operas, yet it simultaneously feels like a direct slap in the face to decades of character history. Back in the day, when Jason Quartermain suffered that tragic accident and became the enforcer we know as Jason Morgan, we watched him evolve into a man whose loyalty to his inner circle was absolute. He would take a bullet or a prison sentence for the people he loves without a single second of hesitation. But to see him now languishing in a WSB black site while the next generation scrambles to fix a mess they barely understand feels incredibly frustrating for long-term storytelling. We remember when the WSB was a formidable, shadowy organization, not a playground for bureaucratic mind games. To watch Jason be reduced to a pawn for this mysterious new head, Z, while young Rocco Falconeri carries the crushing weight of a guilt he should never have to bear, is a bitter pill to swallow. I am heavily suspecting that Danny Morgan now knows the absolute, unvarnished truth about the shooting incident in the past. It was Rocco Falconeri who actually pulled the trigger on Ross Cullum, and Jason Morgan merely stepped in to take the fall to protect the young boy. If you ask me, this is a classic Jason Morgan move. We have seen him do this time and time again over the past 30 years. He has sacrificed his own freedom for Carly, for Sonny, and for countless others. Now, he is doing it for the grandson of Luke Spencer and the son of Dante Falconeri. Danny, carrying the legacy of both the Morgan and McCall bloodlines, is sharp. He has his mother Sam's investigative intuition and his father's fearless determination. The realization that his own father is sitting in a clandestine WSB cell for a crime committed by his peers is a heavy burden for Danny to carry, and it sets the stage for a dramatic generational conflict that we veteran fans live for. Let us take a deep dive into the psychological state of Rocco Falconeri. Even though many people could logically argue that Rocco only fired that weapon to save Jason's life in a terrifying life-or-death emergency, that justification does not change the cold, hard reality of the situation. It was Rocco who pulled the trigger. In Rocco's mind, Jason does not deserve to continue suffering the severe consequences in his place. This young man is the son of Dante Falconeri, a detective with a rigid moral compass, and Lulu Spencer, a woman whose fiery impulsiveness is legendary. Rocco has the law-abiding conscience of a cop and the guilt-ridden soul of a legacy character. He knows that his actions, however justified in the heat of the moment, have cost a man his freedom. The thought of Jason being held by the WSB at an undisclosed, highly secure location is eating away at Rocco's sanity day by day. Meanwhile, the younger generation is not just sitting idly by. Danny Morgan and Charlotte Cassadine appear to be quietly plotting a highly dangerous rescue mission to save Jason. Charlotte brings her own desperate motivations to the table. Her father, Valentin Cassadine, has also mysteriously vanished ever since the enigmatic Z arrived in Port Charles. It is entirely logical for these two intelligent teenagers to deduce that the disappearances of Jason and Valentine are deeply connected. They are both legacy characters navigating a world of espionage that they were born into but are not yet equipped to handle. The ambition of youth is a recurring theme in the golden era of soap operas, and seeing Danny and Charlotte attempt to outsmart an international intelligence agency is both thrilling and deeply concerning. I firmly believe that Vaughn and Molly Lansing Davis might soon join forces with Charlotte and Danny in this desperate search. The idea of forming a new, unlikely alliance to bring both Jason and Valentine home safely is incredibly compelling. Molly, with her sharp legal mind and Davis family tenacity, could provide the strategic grounding that these impulsive teenagers so desperately need. We have watched Molly grow from a precocious child into a formidable legal mind, and her involvement would elevate this teenage crusade into a legitimate threat against the WSB. This potential team-up reminds me of the classic super couple and family alliances of the past, where the Spencers, Quartermains, and Scorpios would pool their resources to defeat a common enemy. It is a beautiful nod to character integrity and family loyalty. However, Rocco Falconeri is looking at this situation through a much darker, more pessimistic lens. He simply does not believe that this amateur rescue plan has any real chance of success. Rocco is grounded in the grim reality of his current circumstances. He looks at the facts. Jason is still not a free man, even though the immediate threat of Ross Cullum has seemingly been neutralized. Cullum was severely injured following his intense confrontation with Jocelyn Jacks, and there is a very real possibility that he might not even survive his injuries. Yet, despite Cullum's incapacitation, the WSB refuses to release Jason. To Rocco's logical mind, this proves that a simple rescue operation by a group of young adults is doomed to fail against a massive, unyielding bureaucratic machine like the WSB. Adding agonizing fuel to Rocco's internal fire is the tragic situation surrounding Britt Westbourne. Britt is currently sitting in a jail cell, facing her own severe legal nightmare, and Rocco genuinely believes that he is indirectly responsible for her dire predicament as well. The compounding guilt of having both Jason and Britt suffering because of the chaotic events he was involved in is pushing this young man to the absolute brink. We have seen this type of overwhelming guilt destroy stronger men in Port Charles. Think back to Dante's early days on the police force, or even Lucky Spencer's battles with his own demons. The historical weight of carrying such a burden is a classic soap opera trope, and it is being executed brilliantly, albeit painfully, with Rocco. All of this agonizing guilt and feeling of helplessness is bound to culminate in a disastrous decision. I strongly suspect that Rocco will be driven to make a highly impulsive, reckless choice in a desperate bid to make things right. I believe he will voluntarily march straight into the Port Charles Police Department and officially confess that he was the one who shot Ross Cullum in the past. In his young, naive mind, this is the ultimate act of heroism and accountability. He thinks he is falling on his sword to save his friends, much like Jason Morgan has done for his entire adult life. It is a poignant, heartbreaking parallel that showcases the deep, generational impact of Jason's legacy on the youth of this town. Rocco's logic, while noble, is tragically flawed. He genuinely believes that if the absolute truth is finally exposed and placed on the official record, Jason will be immediately exonerated and released from WSB custody. He thinks the justice system and these intelligence agencies operate on a fundamental basis of fairness and truth. Oh, how my heart aches for his innocence. For those of us who have followed the intricate, often corrupt machinations of the WSB since the days of the Cold War storylines, we know that truth is the least of their concerns. Rocco does not realize that his brave confession will be nothing more than a useless gesture in the grand, sinister chessboard that the WSB is currently playing on. What Rocco Falconeri tragically fails to comprehend is that the Ross Cullum shooting case is nothing more than a convenient excuse for the WSB to maintain their grip on Jason Morgan. The WSB does not care who actually pulled the trigger on Cullum. Their true underlying objective is far more insidious. Under the enigmatic leadership of Z, the WSB's primary goal is to completely isolate Jason from Sonny Corinthos and the entire Corinthos organization. They know that Jason is the lethal enforcer, the impenetrable shield that keeps Sonny's empire standing strong. By removing Jason from the board, they leave Sonny vulnerable and disrupt the balance of power in Port Charles. This is long-term storytelling at its finest, weaving political intrigue with mob dynamics. Furthermore, the WSB intends to exploit Jason Morgan for their own highly classified, secret operations that Z is currently orchestrating in the shadows. Jason possesses a unique set of lethal skills, an unbreakable will, and a proven track record of surviving impossible missions. Z recognizes this and wants to weaponize Jason for the WSB's benefit. If this theory is correct, and I am almost certain it is, then Rocco's heartfelt confession will not yield the liberating results he so desperately hopes for. Instead, it will only serve to make a terrible situation infinitely worse, complicating the legal landscape without actually turning the key to Jason's cell. Let us project what will actually happen if Rocco goes through with this confession. The fallout will be absolutely devastating. Rocco will immediately face severe legal repercussions, potentially ruining his future and breaking his parents' hearts. Britt Westbourne will remain trapped in her own legal nightmare, entirely unaffected by Rocco's sacrifice. And most tragically of all, Jason Morgan will continue to be a prisoner of the WSB, completely regardless of the truth coming to light. The WSB will simply pivot, burying Rocco's confession in red tape or classifying it as a matter of national security, ensuring that Jason remains exactly where they want him. It is the ultimate tragedy of good intentions paving the road to hell. So, how does Jason Morgan actually get his freedom? In my experienced view, Jason will only truly be released when the secret agreement between Jocelyn Jax and Z officially goes into effect. We know that Jocelyn has been quietly brokering a deal behind the scenes to secure the freedom of both Jason and Valentine Cassadine. Jocelyn is a Spencer and a Jax. She possesses her mother Carly's fierce, unstoppable determination and her father Jax's strategic mind. But dealing with a man like Z is like making a pact with the devil. The WSB does not give away high-value assets like Jason Morgan without extracting a massive, life-altering price in return. What is that price? I firmly believe that in exchange for Jason's freedom, Jocelyn will be forced to sacrifice her own normal life, She will likely be compelled to continue working secretly for the WSB, fully transforming into a shadow operative. Z is already deeply impressed by her skills and natural aptitude for espionage. He sees in her the makings of a master spy, much like a young Anna Devane during the golden era of soap operas. If this comes to pass, Jason will indeed return to Port Charles, walking free once again. But the true cost of his freedom will be the silent, ongoing sacrifice of Jocelyn Jacks, trapped in a dangerous world of international espionage and carrying new, dark secrets that the WSB will continue to ruthlessly conceal. As a veteran fan who has dedicated decades to watching these families triumph and suffer, storylines like this remind me why I remain so fiercely loyal to this show. The character integrity remains intact even as the world around them grows darker and more complex. We are watching the torch being passed to a new generation. Danny, Charlotte, Rocco, and Jocelyn, who are now forced to make the same impossible choices their parents once made. While it breaks my heart to see Rocco consumed by guilt and Jocelyn bartering away her future, it is this exact depth of long-term storytelling that keeps us coming back, day after day, year after year. Let us hold on to hope, dear friends, even when the shadows in Port Charles seem darker than ever.